Educators Lead, episode 126.
Always make sure that your daily activity and that your activity through the week is aligned and matching up with your core values and who you are as a person. When you're planning out your week, when you're planning your day, when you're planning your calendar, what are your core values? What are things that are truly important to you? And make sure that your calendar reflects that.
Welcome to Educators Lead, where we interview leaders in education to offer inspiration and practical advice to help launch educators into the next level of leadership. I'm your host, Jay Willis, and I want to thank you for subscribing to our show.
This is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Educators Lead. Let's join my friend Jay Willis and get ready to take your leadership to the next level.
Hello, EduLeaders. Jay Willis here, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Chanie Wilschanski. Chanie, are you ready?
You bet, Jay. Really excited to be here. Thanks so much.
All right. Chanie Wilschanski is an early childhood strategist and leadership coach. She works with early childhood directors to help them build schools that make a bigger impact through creating a collaborative culture, parent relationships, and teachers as leaders. Chanie believes that regardless of the size of your staff and children or your budget, schools are powered by the people. As a busy mother of 3 children, ages 2, 5, and 7, Chanie still makes it a point to read 2 books a week on leadership, school cultures, mindset, and early childhood, and then instantly apply what she's learning in her own home. So for those people who may not be familiar with your story, if you don't mind, maybe start from the beginning and talk about how you got to where you are today. Like maybe, once you graduated from college till now, and what's kind of that path looked like.
Yeah, so college was actually at a later point in my life. College was actually pretty recent after I got married. Right after I graduated high school, I went to learn abroad in Israel for the year. Oh, wow. And that's when I was studying there, one of the courses that I had taken was on education. And that's when I really started to become fascinated by it. I also grew up, I'm one of 8 siblings. So I have 5 kids under me. Wow. So I kind of, grew up in a home of, nurturing, taking care of other people, all of that kind of stuff. But when I came back from my year abroad, I was 19 years old, and I got my first job as an assistant teacher in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And I worked with an unbelievable teacher. Till today, I keep in touch with her. She's a mentor of mine. It was an incredible experience. And the director of the school, she was the one that really inspired me to go into this field, like for real, not just as like, a 19-year-old kind of, first job thing. And the reason I was inspired to do that was because the way that she valued and respected every single person on the team. There were 30 teachers between assistants, head teachers, co-teachers. Everyone was treated with such dignity, such respect. My opinion was really valued. I was 19. I didn't know anything. Okay. Like I look back and think about the things that I said, and I laugh at myself like, oh my God, I can't believe I even said that. And how did you even listen to me? And to me, that was like everything. Like the fact that my voice mattered, even though I was so new and I had no experience, just really propelled me to want to dig deeper into this field. So that was my first year. And then after that, I moved to Preschool of the Arts in Chelsea in Manhattan, where I worked there for 5 years. And I was the head teacher there in the toddler classroom. And that was also a big turning point for me because that was a Reggio Inspired school. So it was very progressive. And I became really good friends with the director. And those 5 years there really shaped the fact that I knew that I wanted to get a higher education in this field. I still hadn't gone my master's yet. I was, doing my bachelor's on the side, but I hadn't gotten my master's yet. And there was a couple of different things that happened in Preschool of the Arts that really stick with me till today. So one of them is when the director, Sarah, she was kind of switching up the toddler classes, and she ended up putting me with a younger twos class. And I had typically always done the older toddler classes. And I was really upset. I remember that feeling. I was so angry that she did that to me. And I come into her office, like, oh, I had to do this. You really have to switch me, blah, 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 whatever. And she was like, honey, I really think you're up for the challenge. I really believe that you can do this. I'm going to help you, and I'll put extra support in your classroom. And she kind of also promised me a couple other things, really from support-wise. So she's like, I'll be there for you, but I really believe you have what it takes. And I know that you're scared, but I really think that you could do this. And there was something about the way that she said it and the support that she had promised me that I really dove into it. And that was, again, a turning point for me where I was like, somebody believed in me. Someone really believed that I could step up to this challenge. So that was one big turning point. And then another turning point was when I started to step into my own way of doing parent partnerships and relationships with parents. I'm a huge believer in relationships. I think that the speed of anything in life will go at the speed of your relationships. The speed of your business, the speed of your personal life, the speed of anything will always go. It's who you know. So I really wanted to develop relationships with the parents, and I started kind of testing out different ways to connect with parents. So we had all these different parent programs, like dads would come in and moms would come in for Mother's Day, and there was just all these different things. But I always had poor attendance. And I always blamed it on the culture. Oh, everyone works. It's the city, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? That's all preconceived notions. Why does it have to be like that? What if I found a different way to communicate and relate to the parents in a way that they felt like I have to come to this classroom, I need to be there. And so I created a video invite to the dads to invite them to come to this Dad's Day. And I was shocked at the response. I created this video where the kids got on the camera and they invited the dad, and then they shared something personal that they liked doing with their dad. And then I composed that into a 60-second clip. And I forwarded it to every dad's personal email address. Within 72 hours, every single dad replied that they were coming. I had 100% attendance. So that was another big moment for me where I realized that partnership and communication with parents is all in the way that you're actually going to communicate with them, and never settle for this is the way it is, this is the culture, this is just how it's always been done. Really challenge the status quo. And I know in education we get very comfortable with it's always been done this way, this is the budget, this is the bureaucratic, this is what the administration says. It's not true. Be a trailblazer. Step up and say, well, can I challenge that? Is there a different way I can reach out to people? So that was a big moment for me when that happened. And then after I left, when I decided to leave Preschool of the Arts, I missed a year. There was a year in between Manhattan. In between, I was assistant in by Surrey, where I went to help my parents help run their play group kind of preschool over there. Anyways, and then after I left Preschool of the Arts, I went to get my master's. And when I left, I'm married with 2 kids already. When I left to get my master's, and my husband was like, do you really want to do this? It's crazy. You're going to take I did a really great job. I was paid really well. I worked part-time and I got a really great salary. It was really risky to kind of leave that all and go full-time into college and only be living off of one salary, just my husband's job. But I was like, you know what? I want this. I want to get my master's in special ed and early childhood. I want to move further. And I kind of feel like I'm in a dead end right now if I don't, continue. Anyways, he totally supported me in that. He actually went to get 2 other side jobs, so that we can cover she can cover our living expenses and still, that I could still go to school. So that was also a big moment for me where I realized how valuable support is in big decisions that you make in your life. And I got my master's. And then after I got my master's, one of my college professors, who's a friend of mine and a mentor till today, she told me, she was like, Chanie, I really feel like you're going places. And I just promise me that you'll always update me on what's going on in your life. Like, stay in touch with me. Like when the semester was over. And it was really interesting because I didn't think I would stay in touch with her. I thought that I would totally whatever. I thought we would just go our separate ways. But I still keep in touch with her. I call her. She sends different clients my way. And that the year after I graduated from college is when I started working at the Bethesda Teaching Seminary. And the teaching seminary is in Crown Heights where I live. And I was offered that job. I still remember I was driving up with all the kids in the car. We were going to Pennsylvania. We were taking a week between camp and school. So we took the kids out to the Crayola factory. And I got a call from the dean of it's a teaching college. It's called the Seminary, but they get their bachelor's in education in that program. And the dean called me up and she said, I heard about you from a friend of mine, and I would love for you to come in for an interview. We need someone to lead the early childhood course. So I came in for the interview. As they say, the rest is history. I've been teaching there for 4 years now. And what I love about teaching in the college is that it allows me to have a part in the future of the community that I live in, because they graduate from that college and then they go into the schools where my kids are and they become the teachers in these schools. And it's really, for me, it's amazing. It's like I get to train these people that go into the classrooms and teach my kids and my friends' kids and, my siblings' kids or whatever it is. So it's been a really rewarding experience so far.
Yeah. And so you teach there currently, right?
Yes. So I teach there currently. That's one of the things that I do right now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and so, you also have, and I'm kind of touch on this, but the EC Leadership Conference is kind of some other more recent thing that you have had. You can check out at ecleadershipconference.com. But tell me, what's your vision, and then what led and inspired you to develop that vision?
Yeah. So the vision that I have for the school, I work, specifically with early childhood schools. So the vision that I have really is that I want every single early childhood center in the world to be a place that has a collaborative culture, a place where the leader truly creates new leaders, where teachers feel safe to take risks, where they're safe to be innovative and creative, where they connect with the children in their classroom, where they have relationships with the parents, where teachers are excited to come to work every single day. We know that teachers are one of the lowest paying jobs, unfortunately, and yet they come to work every single day and they come in with a smile. So what my vision is that the teacher should be there and she should really feel like she's valued and appreciated, and the work that she does really has a massive impact on the world. She's raising the next generation of leaders, of entrepreneurs, of leaders, of presidents, of everything. So I think that vision is what really drives me every single day.
Right. And so then I guess, tell us about that most recent kind of project that you had, the EC Leadership Conference. What is that all about? So
I love to learn. I'm obsessed with learning. I love doing research. I love collecting data. I love learning. And when I was a teacher, when I worked in Preschool the Arts, when I worked in the Upper West Side, I used to pay for my own conferences. Like I used to pay to go to conferences and to go, watch webinars and to go listen to speakers. And I would kind of fund for it myself because the school, the beginning I was just like an assistant. So the school wasn't, really investing in me in that way. But even later on, like the school only had a certain budget and I really wanted to learn and I kind of dished it out myself. And what really frustrated me about all the conferences that I went to and the trainings was that there was so few really practical strategies to take away that I could actually use in my classroom. Like I had to sit down and kind of sift through all my notes and kind of put together, okay, so here's what my action plan is. Like here's what I'm going to actually do in the classroom. And so that's what really propelled me to start my organization that I have now, where I do teacher training, where I do training for directors, and the entire core basis of the training is all strategy. It's all mindset and strategy. Like when you leave here, you have to leave with an action plan, with strategies, with stuff that you're going to actually do in your classroom. Like no philosophical inspiration. Like I need you to get real concrete stuff to take action on in your classroom. Because it's not worth your time. I was a mom, I was newly married, and then I was pregnant, and then I had, whatever it was. I didn't have time to just come to a conference just to get inspired. I needed to take something home with me. So that's what kind of led me to want to create this conference where I could bring in world-class speakers. And in 1 hour, I would craft questions that I can get the very best content and strategy to give the directors to execute on. And so I divided the conference into 4 sections, which are the 4 biggest pain points: leadership, marketing and branding, progressive education, and parent partnerships. And within each section, I brought the best of the best speakers, and I unpacked their wisdom, their years of experience, their personal experiences. And it's been amazing. I mean, one person emailed me and she's like, I watched 2 sessions and that was worth more than this one conference that I went to for 4 days. Because the way that we designed it was to really be actionable.
So you had a chance to interview some big names like Simon Sinek, David Marquet, Marshall Goldsmith, and many other legends. What have been some of the greatest takeaways?
Sure. Oh my God, there were so many, but I'm going to pick one from each of them. Okay. So Simon Sinek, the biggest takeaway that the directors, so just so you even understand like data. So we had 1,400 people come, and I can kind of look at all the back end data. Also, 800 of them watched Simon's session. Wow. So, his was the most watched session. And so the biggest takeaway from Simon's session was this, is that school leaders, principals, superintendents, teachers, whatever it is, typically in a lot of younger centers, like the early childhood centers, I would say 98-99% are female, working with younger children. And then even in like the older grades, it's a very predominantly female market to be the teachers in the younger grades. So, and then also preschool directors are typically female as well, like working with the 2 to 5-year-olds. So when I asked him that, I said, typically you're going to find that person that female who's going to say, of course I'm nurturing, of course I'm empathetic, of course I'm understanding, like, that's how we're wired, like that's our DNA. And Simon stopped me in my tracks, and he was like, I don't care if the leader thinks that they're empathetic or they're kind or they're caring. I care if the teachers feel that their boss is kind, empathetic, and caring. And the way that you find that out is you ask them. Go and ask your teachers, do you feel that I'm an empathetic leader? Do you feel that I really care about you? And if the answer is yes, then ask them for a specific example. Like, what have I done or said or, said to you or done for you, whatever it is, that actually shows you that I care about you? And that was revolutionary for me, because it was it's so easy to say, oh, of course I'm kind, of course I'm empathetic, of course I'm loving and understanding and I care about my people or whatever it is. But it's a whole different story to actually get into the field and ask the people. Yeah, so that was Simon's. I was just blown away by that.
Yeah, that's great.
David Marquet is incredible, because he is a retired U.S. Navy captain. He's awesome. Speaking with him, I really just felt like I was in the presence of greatness. And the biggest takeaway from his session was really that by default, as a leader, we kind of push all this ownership onto the people. Like we say, you need to be more proactive, or you need to take more initiative, or you need to speak up, or You need to tell me when something's wrong so that I can help you, you know? And he said, it's just the opposite. Like the leader needs to be quiet and actually create a space so that the people can shine and step up. Like, it's not enough. You can't tell them, you know, be more initiative, be more creative, take more initiative, you know, have more ownership or whatever it is. You need to actually create the environment for that to happen. And then with Marshall, you know, the one piece that he was saying, and this is just a really great strategy for everyone listening, is that, I mean, he shared a lot, but one of the biggest things he was saying is that forgive yourself for not being the best leader, the best director, the best superintendent, the best teacher, whatever it is. Like, you don't have to be the best. You just have to be better every day. You just have to try to be better every single day, and stop blaming yourself that you're not perfect. Or, you know, as a teacher, I remember sometimes I'd be like, oh, I can't believe I said that to that kid yesterday. Like, why wasn't I more patient? Or why did I say that to the parent? I should have been more understanding, you know. Or as a director, you say things like, oh, you know, I just shoved the teacher out the door. Like, I really should have listened to her, whatever it is. Yeah, you know, we're always going to have those little regrets or those mistakes. But the thing is that don't beat yourself up for not being the perfect person. Try to be in a mindset of achieving excellence, like just constantly want to become a better educator.
Yeah. So it sounds awesome. I'm just sitting here soaking it all in.
Yeah.
It sounds like some great advice, but I mean, so what would be your objective? You know, what would be your ideal product if somebody visits your site, checks it out, and goes through this leadership conference? What would be kind of the ideal result from that?
Yeah, so it really depends on the area of your school that you want to focus on. And that's why we divide it into 4 parts. Because if you are in a place where your school is really well established and, you know, you have your marketing under control, like you have enrollment, you're not struggling with that, you have a fairly good parent body, and you want to focus on the leadership part, like you want to become a better leader, you want to become a more effective leader in your school, then you would focus your attention on those speakers. And the result would be is you would be coming out with actual strategies of what you can do every single day to become a better leader, like little tweaks to your morning routine, little tweaks to eye contact, little tweaks to when you walk down the hall, how your body language speaks to the people when you walk down the hall. So little things like that the speakers really bring up and highlight, all of a sudden you're going to be making those changes very slowly as far as the leadership. So it really depends on where your focus is. And wherever your focus is, that's where I would, those are the speakers that I would watch, because I find that if we try to become amazing at everything right away, like, oh, I'm going to be an amazing leader and we're going to be awesome at marketing and we're going to do great at this and, you know, we're going to revamp our parent partnership program, you kind of do a little bit of nothing. So really, you know, for someone that's listening to this, really think about, where is the biggest pain in my school right now? Like, where do I really need to focus my energy, my time, my resources? Like, where do I really need to grow? And then focus on that area, because that's where you want to achieve mastery in.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's kind of a buffet of just off the charts, awesome content.
Exactly, and that.
People just kind of pick and choose what's most applicable to them.
Yep, and every speaker, the questions that I crafted, just to kind of give you a backstory, like Simon Sinek's session, I prepared for 11 hours for his interview.
Wow.
And the reason I went into such great depth is because I knew that I only got 60 minutes and I wanted every minute to count. So I crafted like amazing questions. I sat down, I listened to every podcast interview he did. I read every single book that he had. I read every blog post. I mean, I literally like dove into every single one of his really amazing components and then filtered that through the early childhood lens. So when you're listening to the interview, you're really listening to like the cream and the cream of the cream of the crop of what he has to share about early childhood.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's one of the most amazing experiences.
Oh, I can't imagine. That would just be awesome, having a chance to interview such wonderful, wonderful guests. Yeah, I can. Yeah. You know, I my own personal growth just through this podcast and having a chance to interview people like yourself and just a lot of great educational leaders, I would say that likely I have grown the most, more than anyone, any of my guests or even any of my listeners, just from the experience, because you just having a chance to just kind of visit with people who are at the top of their game in educational leadership. It kind of rubs off on you, and you learn so much from the experience.
Wow. Yeah. No, I totally resonate, Jay. Yeah, that it makes so much sense. When we're coming to deliver value, we're definitely going to gain along the way as well. You're what you do is a place of service for other people. And when I find this always, when you're in a mindset of giving and being of service to other people, you will gain along the way. You will learn something new. You will become a better person. Right.
What you put into the lives of others comes back into your own, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, right. Jay.
Well, and that website again for the EC Leadership Conference is ecleadershipconference.com. Pretty easy to remember. So I wanted to kind of backtrack and talk about, you mentioned that as an educational coach, you specialize in working with progressive and Reggio Inspired Preschool. Is that right? What is a Reggio Inspired Preschool, and why do you feel passionate about this program?
Yeah. I'm actually really happy you asked that question. So, Preschool of the Arts that I worked in for 5 years is a Reggio Inspired Preschool. So just to give a little history for whoever's listening, Reggio Emilia is a little town in Italy. And the way that they structured their schooling system there is it's incredibly fascinating. It's all about community. It's all about the relationship and the image of the child. That's essentially, like, if I'm picking in one sentence what a Reggio school is, it's about teaching through the image of the child, teaching the classroom in a way that the child is leading the curriculum. The child is being taught what they're excited about, what they're interested in. So a great example would be every year when I taught the fall curriculum, I taught it very differently depending on the kids in my class. So I never followed a predetermined, preset curriculum. It was all about asking really great questions to the kids, seeing what they're excited about, and then building the curriculum from there. So some years I focused on leaves. Some years I focused on the weather. Some years I focused on hibernation, depended on the group of kids and what they were excited about. So because we live in America here, we can't replicate, Reggio the way it is in Italy, because it's just a totally different culture, different demographic, different way the school system is set up. They have all these outdoor areas. Like, you live in the city, it's just a different ballgame. So it's really Reggio inspired. But the reason I'm so passionate about it is because when you're able to have this openness, to be able to really ask great questions to kids, to be intentional, to be mindful about what you're actually feeding them, like that you're not just giving them this preset curriculum, which eventually happens, once they get into grade school, you're following this preset curriculum from the state or the board or whatever it is. But when they're in preschool, you do have a little bit more of this openness and leeway, and just sitting on the floor and listening to what they have to say, and then asking questions to provoke their thinking. The brain of the child is so malleable from 0 to 6 years old. Like, you're really forming that child. And I'm so passionate about it, because when you can tap into what the child's excited about, and you tap into their personality, their skill set, and they're excited about digging into, beers, or they're excited about exploring bees further. If you did a unit on honey and they want to explore bees further, go with it. Like, now they're excited. Like, this is when the learning comes alive, because the kids are excited about it. So for me, I'm so passionate about it. I like sat up right here, like I'm sitting bolt up, because I'm like, oh my God, I talk about it, and every bone in my body just lights up. I love it.
Well, so how could someone who is listening to this and is interested in learning more about a Reggio Inspired School, how could they learn more about that?
Yeah, so there's so many different places to learn. There's actually like a national association for Reggio, the Reggio Alliance, I think, is a great place to start. But really, for someone that's listening to this, it depends, who you are. If you're a teacher and, you're interested in finding a Reggio Inspired school to work in, you can definitely, check up even something as simple as Google, Reggio Inspired schools in your area. That will come up if you're interested in finding out schools over there. If you're a director, you're a school leader, and you're interested in your school, moving more into that direction, then I would definitely check out, just really go and visit other Reggio schools in your area. Or again, check out the Reggio Alliance is just a great place to start if you want to start taking your school on that journey.
Right. Well, and so in your introduction, it mentioned, kind of helping schools to develop into schools of excellence. So what would you define as a school of excellence?
Yeah, great question. So, and it's interesting because I ask this question a lot to directors when I talk to them on the phone and when I speak to them in my Facebook groups and when I do live streaming. For every director, it means something else. But across the board in all the schools that I work with, and I work with schools in 6 different continents, there's one kind of underlying thread that really goes across, and that is directors define a school of excellence as a school where teachers work together, where teachers collaborate with each other, and they see each other as resources to help each other. And, I ask directors, what's a dream that you have? Like, what would be a dream that you would want to have in your school? And so many of them share the same dream, is that they want their teachers to collaborate with each other. Because every teacher has a story. Every teacher has a history. Every teacher has a completely different skill set and personality. And if they collaborate with each other and they ask each other for help, the ripple effect is endless because everyone's helping each other. So to me, a school of excellence is a school where everyone is really working together, because that's when everyone wins. The parents, the kids, the teachers, everybody's winning.
Yeah. So in your experience, as a school leader, how do you develop that type of culture?
Yeah, great question. So there's a number of different phases in really creating a collaborative culture. But first, I would actually love to just share, I created a school culture model, which is kind of like a pyramid. And you can kind of like envision it. So at the bottom of the pyramid, there's a toxic culture. That's like the lowest culture. And the second level up is a passive culture, which is a culture where nobody's, toxic with each other, or there isn't this feeling of animosity, but everyone's pretty passive aggressive, I guess you would call it, in the school. And the next level up after passive is comfortable, where everyone's kind of really just comfortable where they are. So no one's fighting, but no one's really collaborating with each other. So everyone's kind of in their own world, in their own classroom, does their thing, comes in, does their thing, and leaves. And everyone's just really kind of complacent where it is right now, and they're not really interested in change. But the thing is, in a comfortable culture, you will have teachers that will say things like, oh, yeah, I love creative ideas. I would love to go to a conference. And then they'll go to the conference, but then they won't implement anything because they're actually really happy where they are and they're comfortable and don't move me out of my cozy couch. And then the next level up is collaborative. And that's where teachers are collaborating with each other. That's where teachers are working together. That's where the director is asking teachers for feedback, where she's telling them things like, okay, so what did you guys think of the last program that we did? How can we make it better? What could we do different? So she's collaborating with them. And the final stage is legacy. And that's where the leader really has, she's moving on, but she's left this legacy of collaboration in her school. So that's just to understand context and kind of try to place your school where you are in this pyramid. And then wherever you are in the pyramid, the first place to start is by building trust. And trust is very different from what a lot of directors will, or, school principals will think of it. Trust isn't about, do I trust you to do your job? Do I, actually trust you to be in the classroom alone with the kids? Trust is that feeling where the teacher actually feels safe enough to share her opinion. She feels safe enough to try a new idea that might royally tank. she feels safe enough to come into your office and say something like, I had a little mishap today with a child. Like, he said something and I said something back and I probably shouldn't have said that. Can you help me, sort through the problem? A teacher that feels safe enough to say that to the director, and she's not going to get a yelling back, but the director is going to say, okay, thanks so much for telling me. We all make mistakes. Let's try to figure this out. So that's a feeling of trust, that feeling of safety. And the first step to doing that is by showing appreciation. It's the simplest way to start, and it works like a charm. So my rule of thumb when I'm working with directors is, your first thing is, I want you to print out a list of all the teachers in your department. So if you're a superintendent and you have like 50 teachers, you probably typically have assistant directors that work with you as well. So you pool all the people that are, involved, the main director, assistant director, whatever it is. You print out that list of teachers and you divide it amongst all the people. So if you're one director and you have 30 teachers, great. That's a pretty good ratio. Or 20 teachers, you print out that list and it's on your desk. It's literally taped to your desk. And then you pick a day of the week. So let's say you pick Tuesday, and then you pick a time of day. Let's say you pick 11 o'clock in the morning, just giving, a scenario here. Every Tuesday at 11 a.m., your phone buzzes with an alarm that says teacher appreciation. And you go through the list and you say, okay, who have I not thanked or who have I not praised in the last week? Because you'll put a check mark next to someone that you reached out to, and you'll just send a personalized email, or you'll send a voice memo, or you'll buy them a coffee tomorrow morning, or whatever it is. But you'll do something specific for that teacher where you're going to let her know, I notice, I care, I see what's going on. So a great example is where a director messaged me and she's like, oh, this teacher, she just had a really rough afternoon. She did dismissal and a parent yelled at her in front of all the other parents. And she was, she acted like such a professional, and I was so impressed with her. And I came over to her after and I was like, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you did. And I was talking to her on the phone and I was like, is that all you did? Like, you just said thank you? And she's like, yeah, but I said thank you. I was like, no, that's not enough. Like, she was humiliated in front of an entire carpool line of 50 parents. And she kept composure. She was a super professional. That's not enough. You need to do something else. You need to actually show her that you really care. She's like, well, what should I do? So I said, well, do you know her favorite food? Do you know if there's something that she likes? She's like, oh, yeah, she likes cinnamon buns. I said, great. Tomorrow morning, I want you to put a cinnamon bun on her counter, and I want you to put a handwritten note. So she did that. And she emailed me a couple hours later into the morning, and she was like, the teacher came into my office and she was crying. She's like, I can't believe you did that for me. I can't believe you bought me my favorite Danish and you wrote a card. I can't believe you did that for me. Like, she was literally crying. She was in tears. She was so moved. I said, that Danish cost you $1.50 and maybe took you 5 minutes. But you just planted a seed that you can never buy with anything else. You showed her, I care. And that's how you start developing a culture where people care about each other. Because think about it, Jay, when you do something nice, I always say, if your wife does something nice for you or you do something nice for someone else, that person feels good. They do something nice for someone else after because they feel good. Like, oh, someone just did something nice to me. Like, I want to do something nice for someone else.
Right.
And that's how you create this ripple effect in your school. So it starts in something so simple and so basic, yet it has a massive, massive impact on the culture.
I love it. I love it. This practical tips, things that you can instantly apply. I love it. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things that I wanted to ask about, and then we're going to jump into some rapid fire questions. First of all, do you have any suggestions for how educational leaders can kind of, refire up their staff, and especially this time of year, right? Because it's the end of the school year. You sort of see the finish line, and it is just some people kind of sprint through the tape, but a lot of teachers are just kind of they're limping and they're just crawling with everything they have. They're just trying to get to that finish line. So how do you keep them from being burnout and sluggish, especially during this time of year?
Great question. So happy you asked that. So the first thing is I would get everyone all together in a meeting room. So at your next teacher meeting, your next staff meeting, whatever it is, bring everyone in together And the way that you set up, environment is everything. We all know that, right? So like, hotels, restaurants, coffee shops, think about any place that you walk into, ambiance and environment play a key role in the way that you behave and respond. Okay, so when you go into Abercrombie, there's loud music, okay? So I typically don't even walk into that store because I'm like, it's too loud for me, right? But then if you walk into an upscale restaurant, in the village, in the city that has dim lights and quiet classical music, you're going to behave in a certain way because you're not going to be speaking really loud. You're going to speak in hushed tones because the environment is set in a certain way. Okay. So, and think about anything. Like I always like to look at outside influences and think about, well, how do other people create environments that automatically get people to respond in a certain way? So in your teacher room, I want you to change the environment because that's how you're going to shift the teacher's mindset instantly. So if your teacher's room is typically like one long table where everyone kind of comes in and there's like assigned seating, like the superstar teachers sit over there and all the assistants sit at the end, or I don't know, however you do it, I want you to switch it all up. So when you come into the room, tell everyone to sit in a different place that they typically sit in, like just kind of have everyone do some musical chairs. And then on the table, put a long roll of butcher paper. You know what butcher paper is, right? It's like that long white paper, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, so like, kind of like when you take your kid to the doctor's office, they'll have this white, really thin paper that you sit on.
Right.
So in schools, they have like a thicker paper that you can actually write on. So it's like this white, long butcher paper. So what I recommend is, put out that long white piece of paper that will cover the whole table instead of a tablecloth. Put out a white, long piece of paper. So if you have round tables, cover the table in a different way, but have this white, fresh piece of paper out. And then in the middle of the table, put different color Sharpie pens, Sharpie markers, and have each person take a color marker. And then you as the leader in the front of the room or in the middle of the room, wherever you're standing, I want you to write a question on a paper, on the wall, wherever you're writing. And the question I want you to write is this. Well, first you would kind of introduce it and you would say, we're kind of, we have maybe 2-3 meetings left to the end of the year. And I would really love to end the year with a lot of momentum and a lot of excitement. And I know that you guys, the teachers, are the ones that create the energy in the school. You guys are the ones that come in every morning. You are constantly working with the kids. You have you're the first line of defense to everything. And so it's really important to me that you guys are part of what's happening in the school. And even if you've never done something like this before, they're all going to roll your eyes at you, and that's fine. Like, it's okay. It's the first time you're going to get a lot of eye rolling. And then you're going to ask this question and then have the teachers fill in a blank. And what it's going to say is that, our school, let's say, ABC school, whatever it is, will know that we ended off the year with momentum, or that we have excitement in our school, or, whatever you want that blank to be. Is it that you want to end the year with momentum? Is that you want to have excitement? Is that you want all the kids to leave with a great positive feeling? Whatever it is, like, what's that thing that you want? So we'll know at ABC school that we accomplished this when we see blank. So I'll give you an example of the school that just did this right now, like 2 weeks ago. So they had the teachers fill in a blank. It was, we at ABC school will know that we have a creative team when, and then the teachers filled out a bunch of different ideas of how they'll know that they're a creative team. So now that you're coming at the end of the year, think about what's that thing that you want to end off the year with. You want to end it off with momentum, with excitement, with creativity, with all the kids just being happy every single day, with the parents giving you guys feedback about how happy their kids are, or whatever it is, depending on what grade you're in, what grade you teach, or, what you're in charge of. And then you're going to have every teacher write down one idea to fill in the blank on the chart paper. After every teacher fills out one idea, you're going to say switch, and everyone's going to switch seats to the right or to the left. And now everyone's going to see what the teacher before them wrote, and now they're going to add on a new idea onto what the previous teacher wrote. And you do a couple of rounds of this where everyone's kind of doing musical chairs and adding to what the other person wrote. And so by the end of this exercise of about 10, 15 minutes, you're going to have dozens and dozens of different ways that you can accomplish this goal. And then you're going to have everyone share what they wrote, and you'll write it all down. And then you'll narrow it down to like 3 to 5 core actual ideas and actual strategies of what the teachers can go do in their classrooms to accomplish this goal. And so what happens is now the teachers have had a voice in what's going to be happening in the school now till the end of the year. And so we know that when you have a voice and when you have an opinion and when you have stake in what's happening, you actually are 1,000 times more likely to take action on it. And so this is just one great fun exercise to do with teachers that gets everyone involved, because even the teachers that don't like speaking up, they're just writing on a piece of chart paper. So it's not like they actually have to raise their hand and speak in front of other people. But like this, everyone's actually getting their ideas out. So I love that strategy.
Yeah, that's great. I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah, this just, I feel like there's so much practical application, which is fantastic. You know, you hear a lot of advice and kind of like what you're talking about with, even with your leadership conference that you have, the EC Leadership Conference. It's just, you know, having specific examples of things you can do today, or you can, you know, start planning out today is just, I think, so effective at taking something from knowledge to application.
Yes. And I'm all about that, because as educators, we have to spend so much time studying things and doing things that actually don't have immediate application, just as far as like the state mandates that we have to do, or different things like that aren't, and it frustrates teachers a lot with all this, you know, bureaucracy and all these things that they have to do. And so when you actually bring a teacher into a staff meeting, make it meaningful, like make it memorable, make it important, make the teacher feel like you actually value her time. We all have a life, you know, we all have personal things that are going on in our life, you know, and for every person it's something else. But show the teachers that you respect their time and that you value them, and they will do it in return. They really will. But you're the leader. You have to go first. Like, you have to show respect first, and they'll follow after. It's like a parent, you know? You're a parent, Jay. You know this. You have to model to your kids what you want. You can't just tell them, you know, be kind, say please and thank you. But when you say please and thank you to them, they reciprocate. They model what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me, you know, both at home with my children and then even at work, how you can say something, you can tell people to do things, but once you show them, like you set the example and you show them this is how you do this, it reaches this whole other level of, like, I feel like they have a higher level of respect for you. It's easier for them to understand and visualize themselves doing it. It opens up this whole other world where, because we all know leaders who are just kind of, you know, maybe, I don't know the best way to put it, but kind of like sit up on their ivory tower and just tell people what to do, right?
Yep.
And versus those leaders that generally we respect the most, who are in the trenches with us, getting their hands dirty, saying, look, here's how you do it. Let me show you.
Yes, exactly that, Jay. And I think that for someone that's listening that wants to become a better leader, that's the first place to start. Start acting your way to new thinking. Don't just think about, I want to be a better listener. Be a better listener. The next time a teacher walks into your room, turn off your cell phone, turn your chair around, don't look at your computer, look at the teacher right in the eye and say, I hear you, I'm listening. And really listen. Like, that's the way you act your way to becoming a better listener. You don't act your way to becoming a better listener by reading books about listening. You got to get out there and do it, and you're going to fail, and you're going to tank, and you're going to forget, and you're going to have regrets. But if you don't go out there and do it, you're never going to become better at it.
So, you know, in the midst of the failure and just the challenges, you know, and yourself kind of as a mother of 3 with a successful career, how do you keep yourself, how do you recharge and stay effective and keep your energy up amidst all the chaos?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And so I do want to preempt it by saying is that it is something that I'm constantly working on. It's not something that I believe that I have mastery over, and I don't think it's something I'll ever really have, you know, this mastery over. I think it's that I really do I do a couple of things really. Number one is I have a daily mindset practice where I actually do journaling every single morning for about 10 minutes. And I just journal about what I want to have in my life, what I'm grateful for, what I'm thankful for. Very simple way of just starting off my morning with gratitude. And I feel like the more that I am grateful for the things that I have in my life, the less I become pissed off, the less I become angry, the less I become, overwhelmed or whatever it is, because I'm just, look how much I have, like look how grateful and look how thankful I need to be. So that really puts me in a good mindset. As a mom of 3 kids, there's a lot of chaos that can go on. So that's one of the things I do. I also make sure that I have prayer in my day every single day. For a couple minutes, just have that time for me. And I also, as a mom, I think for me, it's very important to have my own time so that I can separate myself from my career and from being a mom and to just being me as a human being, like just me and Chanie myself. And I struggled with it a lot, thinking that it was something that was selfish, that like, I really need to take care of myself or whatever it is. But the more I actually take care of myself, the more I actually have to give and serve other people. And so I just have time for myself to do whatever I want to do. Read books, go get a manicure, get a run, go out with a friend for coffee, call my dad, whatever it is. Like just something for me every single day for at least a half hour is my time. And also time with my husband. We go out once a week. We make sure that as a couple we're very strong because for me, he's the biggest support system. And so if I'm not going to constantly invest in that relationship, whatever you don't invest in will die. So for me, it's really important that I constantly invest in that, and it's a real motivator for me. But whoever's listening, what I would recommend is really just think about what are those things that really light you up. Is it, prayer? Is it, exercise? Is it going out with your spouse? Is it like, what is it that really lights you up? And make sure that you're not just swimming through chaos, but that you're actually able to be mindful and present in what you're doing in your life right now.
Yeah, that's great. As you were talking about just kind of recharging and maybe sometimes initially feeling guilty that you were taking that me time, and of course people can take it to an extreme, right? Where we all know people who probably spend way too much time away from home than they really should. But I think that most of the people listening to this podcast are kind of the opposite, where they work a lot and probably don't really think to take that time to themselves often enough. But it's just like when you get on an airplane and they say, look, put your oxygen mask on first, put yours on first.
I love that example.
Then you will be in a much better place to put oxygen masks on other people.
But I also think a good measure for me is that when I find myself getting irritable at my kids or at my spouse, I know that I haven't taken enough time for myself. Like when I find myself like getting, short with my 5-year-old daughter who has a lot to say and she shares a lot, and I really have to make sure that I listen because she has a lot to say and I really want to hear what she has to say. But when I find myself getting short-tempered with her, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, shush, I can't, like you just need to be quiet. I know that I haven't taken enough time for myself that day, because if I'm responding that way, then I haven't had enough time for myself to pull myself together to be able to give to 3 other people in my life that need me. So I think a good test is that if you find yourself, being really short-tempered or just not in a good mood a lot, maybe you need some more time for yourself. Yeah.
Boy, that's great advice.
That's for me personally. For every person, it's different. I'm sharing, my personal thing. I know that if I start getting ill-tempered, I know that I haven't taken enough time for myself to pull myself together.
Right.
So I know that when I do have enough to give to my people, to my kids, to my husband, to my clients, to everyone that I work with, to everyone that I love.
Right. Well, so, just in regard to that, when you are just super busy, have a lot of stuff going on, juggling a whole bunch of stuff, and you have those few people in your life who maybe seem to, you love them, you care deeply for them, but they seem to take more time than others. And you're looking at all of the huge list of things you need to do. Like you were using your 5-year-old as an example. And I have 2 girls. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old little girl. And they both are just, awesome. Oh my goodness, their love tank is filled with time. And that is the fuel that fills their love tank big time. And they'll just sit and talk and talk and talk. So how do you, and obviously you love them. How do you do that? Like, what do you do to get yourself in the right frame of mind to make sure that you are effective in those times when you just have a billion things going on, and to keep yourself from looking at relationships as a time drain and an inconvenience, but really keeping yourself in that right perspective?
Yeah, and I love this question because it relates to being a parent and also as a leader in a school. So I'll kind of address both areas. One of the things that works for me the most is that before and again, not everyone has this luxury, but I come home before my kids. I work from home a lot, but even when I go out to speak and do conferences and I speak on a lot of stages, I always make sure that I'm home before my kids walk into the door. That's a really important rule for me because I have to collect myself together before I'm able to greet other people. And what I do in that time frame, like the least amount of time I'll give myself is, let's say, even 20 minutes, right? What I do in those 20 minutes is I do a reflection of the day. So I'll do a quick recap of like, okay, what were the things that I wanted to get done today? Like look at my calendar, what got done, what still needs to get done. Okay, so there's, let's say 5 people I still have to email. Okay, I'll put a reminder for after the kids are sleeping. I'm going to take care of it then. So it's out of my head right now. I'm not thinking about it. There is going to be a time I'm going to take care of that. And that's been game changing for me, where I take those things that kind of sit and nestle in my head and don't allow me to concentrate on the people that I love. And I block it into specific times where I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to email you. I'm going to call you back. I'm going to, write that blog post. I'm going to do it. But right now it's got to be out of my head because right now I need the clear space to be with my family. So that's been game changer for me because then I'm really able to focus because I know I'm gonna get to that stuff. It's on my calendar. It's gonna get done. Right now I have to be with my child. Another thing that constantly inspires me is that I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to different TED Talks. I read books, and there's a common thread in every single thing that I'm reading. And if you're reading something from an older person, a wiser person, a mentor, someone who's even 20, 30 years older than me, they all say the exact same thing. No one ever says, I regret not being in the office enough. I regret not sending that email. The only regrets that people ever have in life is not spending enough time with their family. And I never, ever want to have that regret. And I think that's the one thing that just always stays with me, where it's like, this is my kid. Like, I will get to my client. I will get to the podcast. I will get to the email. I will get to everything. I get one chance to raise my kid. I get one chance to listen to their story. I only get this chance. Like, this is the only shot. Today doesn't come back. It's gone by the nighttime. Right. And I think the more I constantly remind myself about that, the more I'm able to focus. But it's a constant reminder. Like, I'm constantly reminding myself. It's not like one time I heard it and now I'm good. It's constant.
Right. So you mentioned home, but then you mentioned application for education as well.
Sure. Yeah. So like directors, I go in and I observe schools a lot. And one of the things that I do is I kind of go in and I'll kind of shadow the director so I can get a glimpse of the culture and what's going on in the school. And what I notice a lot is directors get very short with their teachers because they have so many other things that they have to do. So when teachers come in and just want to vent or just want to share their idea, they're very quick with the teacher to get them out of their office so that they can take care of other things that they have to take care of. And so what I really recommend for school leaders and for directors and principals is that there needs to be times on your calendar that you listen to your teachers. Like, you literally are there to listen to them. So like, you can have 2 hours a day where your office door is open, and all the reason that you're sitting in your office is so that teachers can come in and talk to you, which means you're not also answering phones, and you're not also answering emails, and you're not also, planning the holiday party. You're not doing any of that. You're in your office, and the only thing you're doing for 90 minutes is listening to teachers vent, share ideas, or whatever it is. Teachers need to know that you're there for them. And every director has that time because you do it anyways. You just do it in between other things. And so teachers don't really feel heard. So if you're doing it anyways, do it right. Just block the time out on your calendar to really listen to your teachers, because teachers leave. And there's a ton of overturn in schools. And one of the biggest reasons is because teachers leave because they're not valued and appreciated. So listen to them, appreciate them.
Yeah. So then would you recommend communicating that to your teachers as well? Like, hey, this block of time is when I'm available?
Yes. I did that with a director, actually. So the school on the Upper West Side, the first school that I worked with when I was 19 years old, I still keep in touch with the director. She's a friend of mine and a mentor. And one of the things that she has an assistant director right now. So one of the things that I helped her assistant director set up is a Google Calendar where teachers can book appointments with the director during specific blocks of time. So she created blocks on her Google Calendar that's available for teachers to book appointments. And teachers have access to the calendar. They have the link, and they could book appointments to talk to her for 20 minutes at a time. And she has, I think, Tuesdays and Thursdays maybe is a 2-hour time block each day that teachers can come in and talk to her. So they book the appointment in advance, and then they could come in and they could speak with her.
I love it. That's great advice.
It's amazing. It's amazing. She's like, the director told me, she's like, I feel like I know my teachers now. They're not strangers to me. Like, I actually know them.
Well, and most importantly, I'm sure they feel heard now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly that.
Yeah. Well, so I'm loving this conversation. I feel like this is just so great. I'm picking up so much great ideas, so many great ideas here. But for the sake of time, I'm going to roll through some rapid fire questions if you're ready for those.
Great. Awesome.
So first off, what would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received. So the best advice actually came from my college mentor, one of my professors. And one of the things she told me, and I've actually gotten this advice a number of times from different mentors as well, and that's why I definitely consider it the best, is always make sure that your daily activity and that your activity through the week is aligned and matching up with your core values and who you are as a person. Because when your activity starts to shift away from your priority, so like if your value is you value family, but your day doesn't even have allotted to be with the family, then it's not a value anymore for you. And so the advice is really, when you're planning out your week, when you're planning your day, when you're planning your calendar, what are your core values? What are things that are truly important to you? And make sure that your calendar reflects that. And to me, I carry that with me every day.
Yeah. Well, what would you say is your biggest strength as an educator?
My biggest strength as an educator is doing, I have something that I call like instant assessments. I have like different matrix and different ladders that I created where I kind of ask teachers some quick questions or directors some quick questions, and I can kind of plot them very quickly out of matrix so that I can know where they are, so I can know what strategy to offer them to help them, because my biggest strength is strategy. So I want to be able to plot the teacher where she is and then offer her a strategy so she can get a quick win right away. I'm all about winning. So I want you to win right away, so I got to know where you are, what strategy you need, and how you can start winning immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, so is there maybe a book or two that have made a big impact on you that you'd recommend to others?
Oh, yes. My God, I read so many books. So my top book is Turn the Ship Around by David Marquet. Every person has to read that. Every educator, every director, every leader, every person. I mean, it's an unbelievable book. I read it 3 times already, actually. I just finished it again for the 3rd time. Every time I read it, I learn something new. It's all about how to turn followers into leaders. So if you're a parent, whatever position you're in, you're always in a position of leadership. And leadership is a choice. It's a choice to want to be a leader. So his book, it is what it is. Go get it, go buy it, and read it. That's one book. Another book that I would say, which has had a massive impact on me personally, that I go back and I read a lot, is What Got You Here Won't Get You Here by Marshall Goldsmith. And he walks through the 20 habits that successful people have that stop them from getting to the next level. So if you're an educator that wants to be promoted, you want to, move on, or if you're a director and you want to become a superintendent or whatever it is, everyone is at a certain stage of their life right now. And if you want to get to the next level, you have to learn different skills. You have to challenge certain behaviors that you've been doing right now to get you to the next level. Because what got you to where you are now will not get you to where you want to go.
Yeah.
So his book is incredible and it's been life-changing. So those are the two books that I would recommend.
That reminds me of a quote I've heard. If you always do what you've always done, you're always get what you've always gotten.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that quote, Jay.
Yeah.
I love that one. Yeah.
Well, so what advice would you have for a teacher or a school leader in regard to working with their students?
I think the best advice is, okay, so I'm going to break it down into an actual practical strategy. I could say listen, but the way that I would break it down for you is I want you to pick, and I do this, when I do my training workshops as well on being more mindful in the classroom, is I want you to pick 2 days of the week and then a specific 20-minute time frame that you're going to actually really listen to the kids. So depending on what age you teach, or, kindergarten, little kids, all the way up to 12th grade, whatever it is, I want you to pick 2 days a week. So let's say you pick Monday and Wednesday, and you pick the first half hour of the day from 9 to 9:30. And that is the time frame where you're sitting in between the desks or you're sitting on the floor and you are listening. You're not cutting out papers. You're not laminating. You're not gluing. You're not taking pictures. You're not doing anything. You're listening to the kids. If you do that twice a week for a month, you will become a different educator. You will look at the kids differently. You will respond to them differently. You will respect their challenges differently. You will become a different educator. So that's my advice.
Well, and so kind of along those lines, what piece of advice would you have for a school leader as far as working with the teachers?
Yeah. So for the school leaders working with the teachers, when I say listening, I'm going to say it in a different way now. So when the teachers come in and they're talking to you, okay? So I always like to give advice based on what you do already. I don't want you to make so many changes. So what typically happens already is teachers walk into the director's office and they vent. Okay, that's what teachers do. They do a lot of venting, a lot of talking, the teacher's room, the teacher's conference room, the lounge, there's lots and lots of venting going on. And so what I want you to do is I want you to take the time to actually listen to the patterns of what the teachers are venting about, because maybe there's actually something you can do to help them, to make their life easier. So I'll give you an example. I gave this challenge to one director, and I told her, listen to what teachers complain about in the teacher's lounge, in the conference room. And so she sat in there, and she was eating lunch with the teachers, and she was kind of just really listening, not eavesdropping. She was actually listening to their conversation. And she heard they were all talking about how the special educators have crazy schedules and they disrupt the class a lot because they're coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And every teacher was sharing a different story of how the special educator was interrupting her class. Okay? So the director was like, oh my gosh, I could do something about this. Let me look at the schedules and let me see if I can make some tweaks where it's going to be less interruption. Okay? She looked at the schedule. She made simple tweaks. I think it took her a half hour. At the next teacher's meeting, she rolled out the new schedule where there was going to be less interruptions. The teachers were in heaven. They couldn't believe she did that. They didn't even ask her to do that. They were just complaining about it. So, and that made a huge difference for the teachers. So listen to what your teachers are venting and complaining about. So the next time a teacher comes in to vent, look at it as an opportunity to be okay, let me really listen. What is she really venting about? And let me see if it's something I can help her with. Don't just sit there and say, okay, let me just get through this. Let her just get it off her chest, and then I close the door and I can get back to what I'm doing. Listen from a place of wanting to serve.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I've heard, complaints, criticism. I've heard the metaphor of it's kind of like a nut that's in the shell. And so you kind of have to, so your objective though is to you throw away the shell. So in some cases, people don't approach it the right way when they do complain, but you still want to grab the meat that's inside the nut. There's still something in there that's causing people discomfort. And so you throw away the bad stuff, throw away the shell, whatever, however it's delivered, just ignore that part, but realize that in any complaint, there is some meat of truth to it that you really need to pay attention to.
I love that. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. Well, so the last question I have, if you had a time machine and you could jump in it and go back to the point in time when you first made the decision to go into education, what advice would you go back and give to that younger version of yourself?
Oh gosh, you don't know everything. Listen, learn more, ask more questions, and stop thinking that you know everything. I think the older I get, the more I realize how much I don't know and how much more I want to learn. And when I was younger, I felt like I knew so much. So what I would tell my younger self is be quiet, listen to mentors, listen to people more, and learn more, because now I do so much of it. I'm always listening to my mentors. I'm constantly asking people for advice, for help. I'm reading books. I'm constantly learning because I know how much there is that I don't know yet. Right. So I would definitely tell that to myself.
Yeah, that's great. I could have used that advice, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's great.
I think we all have that. Yeah.
And finally, if one of our listeners wants to reach out to you after the show, what would be the best way to connect with you?
Sure. So I actually created a gift for anyone that's listening. It's called the Director's Toolkit Bundle.
Oh, awesome.
And it has 6 PDFs with really great actionable strategies on like the teacher's language of appreciation, how to survey your team, how to do parent partnerships, just different great strategies. So you can download the free gift, and then that's how you can get access to my email address, which is Chanie@discoveredconsulting.com. So that's one of the best ways just to get in touch with me.
Awesome. And I'll have that in the show notes so listeners can go check that out. Thank you for that gift. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm always, again, action strategy. So I want to make sure that people get as much as they can for taking the time to listen. So
that's great. Well, thank you again. Well, EduLeaders, this has been a great interview today. For the show notes of today's show and other resources, visit educatorslead.com and type the word Chanie, that's Chanie, into the search tool to find her show notes. Chanie, thank you for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you so much for having me today. This was really exciting, and I really hope anyone that's listening found it valuable. Thanks again, Jay.
And that wraps up another episode of Educators Lead. This podcast is brought to you by Mometrics, the #1 test preparation company. Mometrics offers study materials for over 1,800 different exams, including the SAT, ACT, GED, end-of-course exams, state standard exams like the STAR, teacher certification exams, advanced placement, CLEP, ASVAB, GRE, and so many more. Mometrics takes the mountains of information students could be tested over for any given exam and boils it all down to just the fluff-free golden nuggets of information that are most likely to be on the exam. They couple that with some great study tips and test-taking strategies to help students maximize their test scores. With their interactive tutorial videos and a layout that makes lesson planning easy, Mometrics study guides, flashcards, and practice questions are a great fit for individual or classroom use. To learn more about our products and our vault of hundreds of free tutorial videos, please visit educatorslead.com/test prep. That's educatorslead.com/test prep. EduLeaders, thank you for joining us on Educators Lead. Visit us at educatorslead.com for everything we talked about today, free resources, and much, much more.